Ben, you mentioned Ethereum, and I'd love to go a little bit deeper into just your thoughts on Ethereum. I understand what you're saying when that it outperforms Bitcoin when Bitcoin's above the average. Tell me just overall thoughts on Ethereum. Obviously, people were talking about this concept of the flippening on and off, which I guess means the market capital of ETH is above that of Bitcoin. Right now, I think it's about half or a little less than half right now. Just your thoughts on ETH.
Yeah, let me pull up a Ethereum. Let me just pull up a couple charts here, and then let me share my screen. Okay, so with Ethereum, Ethereum is a blue chip, in my opinion. As we said before, like Bitcoin's one, Ethereum is the other. Ethereum is I believe it's pretty far ahead in terms of layer
And
ones.
why is it a blue chip? Let me stop you there, Ben. First of
Yeah.
all, if why would you call it a blue chip? Like if you had to say it in one sentence, what would be that reason?
Because the technology is just better, in my opinion, than a lot of the other. Then it's competition, right? It's competition.
And it's got a history and network effect and
Yeah,
developers, and it's proven itself over time.
it's got a ton of developers. It's got a huge network. But more importantly, the technology, in my opinion, is pretty solid. I mean, look, I know there's some issues with it. I'm not gonna say there's not. I mean, who wants to dive into Ethereum DeFi when it costs $100 to carry out a transaction? But look, a lot of these other chains are going to have similar issues, and we're already seeing that happen on a lot of the other chains. They're going to have to transition to other things like rollups and whatnot in order to scale. And all these chains, as I've said before, they can also have low gas fees, but there's a lot of times, not all the time. There are certain cases we can talk about, but like a lot of times, if you're going to have high gas fees, there's a lot of chains that do, or the low gas fees, a lot of chains that do that, but they're sacrificing some level of decentralization. I do think the market values decentralization. So I look at it and say, look, a lot of these chains are ultimately going to go the way of Ethereum, right? They're going to ultimately do more or less what Ethereum is already trying to do. They're going to have some of the same issues. And if they don't have those issues, it's because they've decided to take a more centralized route. When they do that, then you have these node operators that have trouble just staying synced to the blockchain.
Right.
That presents an issue as well.
All right. We'll definitely dive into a bunch of those layer ones right after this, and I think you have some really good points on centralization. Just so
Yeah.
we're looking at now. What are we looking at right now, and what do you see on this chart? Is this Ethereum weekly
Yeah.
candles?
This is Ethereum USD, and look, I mean, Ethereum has done exceptionally well, all the way down from $80 or so market cycle bottom. Now it's trading for $4,200. But I think the important thing, if you think about like the idea of the flippening and can the flippening happen, the whole idea is, well, can the market capitalization of Ethereum flip Bitcoin? And it is possible, right? I'm not going to say it's not possible. If you just go look at the Ether Bitcoin chart, I drew these lines on this chart in 2019. Like these lines, and it's done pretty well. Like, I mean, it was in that for a long time. We ultimately came above it. We're sort of just tracking that trend line that once upon a time we acted as some level of resistance. Right now, we're just sort of slowly going up it. Look, we know that the market cycles lengthen, right? We already covered that idea. We also see that the Ethereum valuation against Bitcoin is going up. Therefore, it stands to reason that if this cycle were to last long enough, okay, then Ethereum could flip Bitcoin. If it were to last long enough, if the cycle ends in 3 months, then Ethereum's unlikely to flip it, right? It's just simply there's just not enough time, right? There's just not enough time for it to have a crazy push like that and flip Bitcoin. But what if the cycle keeps moving on? Like what if we have a few months of accumulation, we continue trending higher, maybe the Ethereum valuation against Bitcoin comes up to 0.1, we get rejected. And if we just keep on going, right? If the cycle, depending on how long the cycle goes, there is a chance that Ethereum could flip Bitcoin. I would say it's more likely that Ethereum flips Bitcoin than any altcoin flips Ethereum.
And again, you wrote those. You posted those lines 2 years ago, and
Right.
these are linear, pieces, literally linear lines, and yet this is a whole technology play with all sorts of things that are happening in the background. When you look at it now, how has Ethereum changed besides establishing that it really is the dominant player? Is there anything else changed about it that would make you think anything slightly different about it?
No, I mean, I look at Ethereum and I say it's basically getting its fingers in every sub-asset class of crypto. I mean, who launches NFT? I mean, the people that launch NFTs, right? They launch them on Ethereum most of the time, right? Most of the time, not all the time. I imagine the metaverse is going to be a big play. Ethereum is going to have a role in that. Institutions are buying Ethereum. I think that there's only more and more reasons that Ethereum is showing itself to be a blue chip of the asset class. So that's why I would say it. Look, portfolio theory would suggest it's a blue chip, right? If you run simple Sharpe ratio analysis on Bitcoin, Ethereum, it comes out 65% Bitcoin, 35% Ethereum. Like that's a pretty good ratio. You look at the market capitalization, it's right up, it's number 2. It's a blue chip. You look at the fact that it's trending up against Bitcoin. I just think I think it's a blue chip. I don't have any reason to think it's going to turn around anytime soon. I do think it's going to continue higher. I think the only thing, the way that it flips Bitcoin is basically if the cycle carries on long enough.
Right. And is that even a conversation that it makes any sense? The flipping, whether its market cap is bigger or not, is it relevant?
I think it is somewhat relevant because I don't honestly, like I sort of go back and forth on what I think about it, and sometimes because like a lot of institutions I imagine buy Bitcoin because it's number 1, right? And it's been number 1 for a decade, and that's sort of like one of the big things about it is, look, Bitcoin is the main crypto, like it is the one that has stood the test of time, and it will continue to stand the test of time. That narrative could somewhat become a little bit flaky if it's like, oh, well, Bitcoin's number 2. That'd be interesting to see how it would change the dynamics of the entire asset class if the juggernaut that's been around for 10 or 11 years is no longer number 1. I should say this, though. If Ethereum flips Bitcoin this cycle, which I'm not sure about, I'm honestly not sure about, but if it does, I don't think it would hold that position in a bear market. I think Bitcoin would then come back and overtake it in a bear market.